Hi, friends. Welcome to Screens in Focus, the podcast where we dive into your favorite TV shows and movies. I'm Diana, and today we are joined by the amazing Renee for a special deep dive into the incredible journey of The Walking Dead's Rick Grimes. Hi, Renee. How's it going?
Hello. I'm well. How about you?
I'm doing so good because I've been waiting to talk with you. And so, because it's been a little bit, right? Since we last got together right before the holidays. So, and with all the trailers and just everything that's out there, all the articles, all the events that are happening with the ones who live, I'm just so excited. And so I thought it would be such a great idea to, dive into Rick Grimes' journey before we get there.
Yeah.
Because The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live will premiere on February 25th, and we're going to be covering those weekly. But I wanted to dive into Rick's pivotal moments and his leadership. And I know we're not going to be able to cover everything because there's just so much. It's so extensive. But I want to talk about things that mean the most to us, what sticks out to us, and what our anticipation is on The Ones Who Live. So I'm just really excited about this conversation with you. I do want to let everyone know that we have shelved our question of the day because we have so much to dig into here. But I also want to remind you to reach out to us. And of course, we appreciate your comments and want you to chime in because we want to hear from you. You can do so at Screens in Focus. And you can get to all our social media at screensinfocus.com because your voice matters and we really want to hear from you. All right. So let's get started. Renee, is there any news that you want to share before we get into Rick Grimes?
Well, the rumor has it that Daryl Dixon season 3 has been kind of a go. It's not been officially announced by AMC, but Scott Gimple has confirmed it. So that's exciting. And then, of course, the season 2 will be coming out at the end, so later in the year. I would think in the fall, kind of like they did.
Yeah.
One, I bet that's what they'll do. And then Dead City is rumored to begin filming in March, but they're not going to be filming in New Jersey and New York. I forget where it's at though. I forget where. Anyway, I'll have to get back to you on that because I forgot where it's filming. So anyway, they've changed some filming. And then I wanted to give a little plug to the camp events that'll be taking place Memorial Day weekend in Peachtree City. They are having a huge lineup this year. They have, for the first time ever, Lenny James will be coming. So we're super excited for that. That's yeah. Other new first timers, Seth Gilliam, Layla Robbins, Michael Trainor's going to be there. Daryl Mitchell is going to be there, and just a lot of new ones. But then we've got returning, Pollyanna McIntosh will be there, and Chandler Riggs. I almost said Chandler Grimes. Paola will be there, and Josh Hamilton. Mo Collins will be there again. Yeah, so it's getting, and there's another exciting announcement coming very soon also. So yeah, lots of good stuff. So, that's the camp events and you can find them on, their website and social media, but it's exciting. And I do the panels for the event. So it's always exciting to see these new people to come in that we get to talk to. So excited.
It is exciting because you get to meet with people that have come throughout the years and then the new people too. So, oh my gosh, it's going to be so exciting. Yep. Do you want to share your writings with Undead Walking also, please?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can find all my writing at undeadwalking.com. And we've got social media, of course, all of it, Twitter and Facebook are the major ones that we use. And so if you can just pop over there and you can see all of the different things that I write about, Walking Dead related or actor adjacent or, that sort of thing. I try to, find what the actors are going to be in next and things like that and try to share a lot of that to get them promoted for that. So.
Yeah, I love it because I subscribe to you and it's just so informative and they're short reads. So you can just get through them quickly. And there are things I don't think about or you're recommending some of the actors they're in other TV shows or movies or what they're doing. It's funny. okay, this is something separate. So my son always tells me what's on TikTok or what the memes are, whatever it is. So he has learned so much about The Walking Dead through doing all of that. But he had said something about the deer, the CGI deer, or the so-called, it really wasn't CGI deer, right? And I didn't remember that part. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I look it up, and guess whose article pops up?
I wonder whose article that was, because I think I was probably one of the only people that wrote about that.
Yes, it was so amazing. So I was reading the article to my family, and I said, look, this is what Renee wrote. So because I didn't remember that particular scene, because I think we might have talked about this. I've seen so much more of seasons 1 through 6, 1 through 5, like a lot.
Yeah.
Like I've marathoned that a lot. And anywhere from 6 to 11, I've only seen at minimum 2, 3 times. Maybe a few more actually, depending on what episode they are, but not as much. So I couldn't remember. And he was telling me, the scene where there's a carnival, and I'm like, what? I don't know what you're talking about. But anyway,
you blocked it from your mind because it was so bad.
So, of course, when I was watching it again, then I remembered. But to recall that there was a scene, that there was a carnival, no, I didn't remember that. I didn't remember the deer. All I remembered is the deer with the earlier episodes, Carl and such. Yeah. So anyway, all to say that it was your article that popped up.
I'm glad
it was very informative and helped me figure it out. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. So the only news that I wanted to bring up is, of course, the Oscar nominations are out there, and I am going to be covering the top 10 movies. So I've been watching all of them. So please be on the lookout for that podcast episode coming out. And the Oscars itself, the ceremony is on March 10th. And Cobra Kai is in production for season 6. I love Cobra Kai. So I cannot wait for that. So I'm very excited. So, we have some really good things coming out this year. So very exciting. Okay. Now let's dive into unforgettable highlights that shaped Rick's leadership in this apocalypse, his journey and his evolution. And of course, we're going to be talking about some themes like leadership, family, resilience, and adaptation. I think we're going to group this into seasons because it's easier for us to get through it. And then there's so many seasons, so we kind of have to group them together. And so I do want to start with seasons 1 through 3. And of course, we have to talk about the initial episode because that's where we meet Rick Grimes. And, he's this just really ordinary sheriff thrust into this apocalyptic world and wakes up after being in a coma. And along the way, he encounters survivors who impact his story and journey, and always driven by the goal of finding and protecting his family, which is why I love him so much. But in the first 3 episodes, Rick meets pivotal characters, including Morgan, Hershel, Michonne, and the governor. And so let's explore standout moments during this time and discuss Rick's leadership and evolution. So who or what stands out to you in these few seasons?
So I always say that these are my favorite seasons, probably including 4 though also. Though, it's just, we learn so much and it's all the new stuff and it's a smaller cast and it's just easier to follow. There's just a lot of redeeming qualities about these episodes or these seasons,
Yeah.
But one thing that always struck me was Rick, he was such a devoted family man. The first thing that, he wakes up and it's like, I've got to go find Lori and Carl. I mean, that's what that was his goal. He, heads right to his house and he's seeing things. He doesn't know what's happening. What the heck, and that's when he meets Morgan, of course. And so, I just love that was his first, which would be a lot of husbands and fathers' first thought was to find their family, but it just showed us right from the get that that's where his mind is. That's what kind of man we're looking at.
Right.
And so it was just, that just showed us a lot about him just starting out. And, befriending Morgan then, I feel that set him up for success in the apocalypse because if he hadn't met Morgan, he'd still be like, why are these, these dead things moving? What's that,
Yeah.
Because, waking from a coma is one thing, but then Like, okay, am I still in the coma? What's happening here?
I know. Yeah.
So, and his dedication to Morgan and Dwayne after they parted was just, again, showed us what a loyal friend Rick was. So as we're doing this, we're learning all these things about Rick Grimes, and it's just making everyone love him because he is these things, and, how about like, even after the outbreak, that changed a lot of people, or it maybe changed them, but it also their true natures came out, more.
Yeah, exactly.
But Rick still held his compassion. We see that when he sees the teddy bear walker. He does not want to kill this little girl, but he knows at this time, I know what this is. I've got to do this. The bicycle walker, he apologized. I'm sorry that you're.
I know.
Who does that? This.
Yeah.
And then even with Merle, he was like, Lori and Carl, like, we just found you can't leave us. But he knew he, as a husband, a father, a friend, a sheriff deputy, he couldn't just leave this man to die there, even though they left him, but he had, so, we learned all those things, very quickly, and it built him up in our minds and made him our hero,
I have that written in my notes, and I want to bring it up because I don't know if maybe it is other people's thoughts also, but we know he's a family man. We know he's committed to his family, but the fact that he wants to go back, and even with the type of person Merle is, and he doesn't really know Daryl either yet, right? And so, but he's willing to put all that on the line to go back to get a man in the midst of all these walkers that he doesn't really even know that much information about, and everything that he has experienced with being in the tank and all those hordes. That's really scary, but that doesn't matter to Rick. And that shows you the type of person that he is, the courage that he has, and to leave his family after he just found them to go do that. So I'm really glad you brought that up, because that was a note that I had also.
Yeah, because Merle, all he knew of Merle was that he was racist, he was a misogynist, he was nothing redeeming. You know what I mean? He didn't learn
exactly.
If Merle at that time had a redeeming quality, Rick didn't learn about it.
No.
And yeah, so and the other people at the camp, Shane, a lot, they were like, no, you don't go back and get Merle Dixon, So it just shows us that, but Rick and Shane, man, that is just such a. How did they become such good friends? Did Shane suppress all that for so long? I don't, like I said, a lot of people that we meet along the way, their true natures came out. They thrived in the apocalypse because they were bad people, and they just were like, wow, now I have free reign. I have no, there's nothing to, keep me from being bad or a horrible person. So how was Shane? You know what I mean? Like, I would really love to know more about Shane and Rick's relationship before the outbreak. Was he always that way? And Rick just, they just don't seem to mesh well, because they're not alike in many aspects or any, I don't know.
Well, they were never put in those circumstances either. And Shane did so much, but I guess to Shane's credit, he would have done anything for Rick up until that time, until Lori and Carl. But, because he was the one visiting him, that he remembers visiting him in the hospital. And
there was something there at one time.
Yeah.
I think his jealousy and his, that he had Lori, he had Carl, then Rick shows back up. Then that could have been what finally, like, okay, that's it. I suppose that could have been it. But, I
understand though what you're saying. It makes total sense. It's like, how do these two people get along when you?
Yeah, and it could have just been he was not quite that way prior to or whatever. But I just love how Rick handled him throughout that whole time. Shane wasn't on very long, but a lot of stuff happened in the short period of time he was there. But Rick handled it so well because he knew him so well, and I think he kind of knew eventually he would mess up. You know what I mean? Like Rick, it helped. It showed Rick's ability to read people and to be a leader, because he could read people and understand where they're coming from. And so he would, their relationship during what we saw after the outbreak really tested Rick's resolve, because he had a lot of times to be just like, gotta walk away because we're going to end up killing each other.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about Rick, what he has done through all the seasons, sometimes he shocks us too. And so the Rick prior to this apocalypse would have never done the things that he's had to do also. Absolutely. So I guess Shane did things that he would have never done either. So
yeah. Good point. That's very good. Yeah. So, but I always liked how Rick handled Shane because he did know him very well. And he was just they had some confrontations, but a lot of times he'd avoid those confrontations just because I think he knew eventually Shane would trip himself up and, his true nature would come out or whatever. So, of course, Rick and Hershel's relationship, that's just, there's just so much we could do a whole episode on that,
right.
Because Hershel just imparted this wisdom he was just helping Rick like he would a son or, whatever, like helping him just learn from all the mistakes he had made and things like that. And just all the different things he shared with him. And so that was, it's something I feel that Rick is still carrying those life lessons and he will carry those into the ones who lives.
Yeah.
I just feel like Hershel will always be there with him because of all that wisdom he imparted in him. So, so I just think that's, of course, like I said, we could do a whole episode just on that topic, but
I think we might. I think we might at some point. I wanted to say, because we even see Hershel change a lot too, throughout the seasons. But what I think I really liked about Rick when he got on the farm is he knew that that property was Hershel's, and he respected that, and he respected that this, man was trying to take care of his family, his farm, because Rick could have easily come in and said, "We're taking over, buddy."
We got manpower. Yeah.
I mean, he could have, but he didn't. He wanted to, that's what Shane kind of wanted to do. But, Shane wanted the guns and all of that. But Rick was trying to, have his group survive and support his group. But at the same time, he was respecting Hershel and his family and his farm and his land. So I really appreciated that, how Rick conducted himself there. Just everything with the walkers being put in the barn and how he was helping corral those. He didn't know what they were doing. And, when he went out on that sort of run, I guess, to go get walkers and bring them back, that was right before they found Sophia and all of that happened. And then, of course, that's when Hershel realizes, oh my God, these people are really walker zombies. They really are dead. They're not coming back. We can't fix them. It's not just, a virus, a disease
or something.
Get better. Yeah. But Rick, he just had this balance about him, about how he had to treat Hershel and how he had to treat everybody else. So I really appreciate all of that. But I want to lead up into, there's so much happens. And I know we could deep dive into the first 3 seasons, but we just don't have the time right now to do that. So what I wanted to say about Rick's leadership in this is that the aftermath, after he has to do, kill Shane, because Shane's about to kill him. And unfortunately, Carl has to kill Shane so he doesn't kill his dad. And they make it out after the fire and everything. And they're on the road and they're trying to figure out things. They're like, oh, well, how did Shane become a walker? Did he get bit? All of this is happening. And Rick has to come clean about what he learned, lets them all know they're all infected. And all of a sudden, this tension between all of this group that he has been leading and this frustration. And they're like, why didn't he tell us? What's happening? And then Rick gets mad at them because he's like, I didn't choose to be your leader, but here I am. I'm leading us. I'm protecting us. I'm doing what I need to do to get us to survive. And they all question his leadership. Well, not Hershel though.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved. Right. But they all question it. And I love when he gives that speech and he's like, you know what? You want to leave? You can go on out the door. I'm okay with you leaving. You're fine. Or you're going to stay here. But I feel like that was really when one of the times that he really asserted his leadership and how things were going to be conducted from then on. Because I just think that, his style became very pragmatic and he was focused on all of them surviving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that scene, I still never quite understood how they got all so upset with him, because them knowing that, what would have really changed at that point. But also Rick had to see that for himself. Like, he is like, there's no way this is true. When he saw Shane reanimate, then he was like, crap, that, Jenner was right. And so to me, I just didn't think that was worthy of all that. Everyone getting so upset, because it was like, who's going to believe that? Some guy that decides to kill him. I mean, the man's blowing up the CDC building, and so it's like, who is this guy, and everything. And so I don't know. I just thought it was great. It's great. It's an awesome scene. I love it. But it was just odd. Like, why did we get so mad?
Well, I actually thought, and you make a good point, because that is true. He had to see it for himself. Mm-hmm. But I thought to myself, I might have been a little bit irritated too, because I thought to myself, well, what if somebody died in front of me and I didn't realize that they were going to come back as a walker, and then I get bit because I didn't know that, have that knowledge. So that was why I thought maybe that they were upset about it.
Yeah, that makes
sense. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm always Team Rick. I am. I just happen to be. And so I'm thinking, he has a good reason. Well, he has a good reason. So just back off and let him be the leader here.
Just let Rick do his thing. Do his stuff and things.
And also in this first 3 episodes, we do get our introduction to Michonne, and showcases the beginning of Rick and Michonne and how they interact, because they both are a little leery of each other, right? Which, as they should be.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting when you go back and you see those episodes,
knowing what we know.
Knowing what we know now, we're like, oh yeah, we know you guys. We're gonna be that couple. So yeah, I do like going back and seeing that, and seeing Michonne's strength and independence in this, but also that she's willing to tell them about Glenn and Maggie and go with them to show them where they're at. And
they have a common enemy in the governor. So they're like, okay, we'll set aside our differences here and we're going to get this guy together,
Yeah. Their unity, in facing the challenges together. And of course we meet the governor, which we've talked about before. So,
he just, man, that guy.
Yeah. Again, we could do a whole episode on just him, but let's move forward because we have so much to talk about. So the next episodes would be seasons 4 and 5, which are really pivotal. And I've shared with you that season 4 is like it is my favorite, not one of mine. It is my favorite season. There's so many episodes that are just so good in this. And we also see what happens with Lori. And how Rick's leadership changes, after Lori dies, and also the confrontation with the governor, and also, encountering the threats with the claimers. And it just highlights Rick's protective instincts. And I, also see that Michonne plays this crucial role in these intense moments. So what moments or themes or what sticks out to you in these seasons?
So, like a lot of people, the prison, I love the prison. It's just one of my favorite times there. It's rough at first, but then we see that kind of transition where things are running kind of smooth before the governor gets there and all that, and so it's just an interesting to see this little community come together and stuff, and, Rick losing Lori, it's crazy because Lori she's one of my least favorite characters, but her death is one of the most heartbreaking as a mom, all this stuff. Yes. So you watch that, and then, it just again goes to show, Rick and his integrity and his, just all his positive attributes, because he did love her. You know what I mean? Like, despite their, they fought, they had issues, they both didn't always agree on everything. More, and just the atmosphere they're thrown in and stuff. But, just the fact that he completely came unglued after losing her, he did love her. And so, that was always a neat thing to see, even though it was, he came out on the other side, at least better for what he had to experience. And of course, this again, go back to Hershel and Rick, just a lot of their interactions during those, it was just, We didn't know that was the end of Hershel, but it was coming to the end, you know what I mean? And so he really did impart more wisdom to Rick. And one of my favorite Rick things is, of course, with the claimer Joe, and he just, that was outstanding.
yes.
I was shocked when it happened, and it was like, oh my gosh, what did he just do? But again, it's just, he lost Lori, and at this time he still thinks he lost Judith, and he has Carl. He's got to protect his son because that's the last person. And Michonne at that point, he was, they weren't in a relationship at that point, but they had mutual respect and they had a friendship and trust.
Yeah.
Because he was still trying to convince Carl. I think at that time he was still trying to convince Carl, or maybe not. Anyway, that was, yeah. He still would have been trying to convince Carl at that point that Michonne was worthy of being with them, because it wasn't until after they found Judith that then Carl and Michonne start to be better friends and stuff.
There's so many episodes. I'm like trying to remember the time.
Anyway,
but I feel like they were already friends, because that's when they go back and look for the pictures and all of that.
No, that would have been after they got Judith, because they were getting a baby bed. See, that's what, yeah. So
you're probably right. I know,
but maybe anyway, I know.
But that's the beginning. You're right. But it is into that time already. Yes. I think that they're friends. They just become better friends. That's what it is. Yeah.
Because when they meet up with the claimers, they don't know Judith is alive at that point. But anyway, whatever.
No, they don't.
It's in that area. You know what I mean? But then during the prison and things, Rick's relationship with Carol was it was very interesting because.
Oh, yeah.
He kicks her out, and I get why he did it, and she got why he did it. She understood. But most people would have been like, forget it. I'm, hold a grudge. I'm not doing anything for you. How many times did she save them? Continued always to save them, Yeah. And so it was just really neat. But that's just how Carol is, And so it was just a very interesting, relationship and dynamic between those two characters because of all that went on. And then she just saves the day like it's not a thing, And anyway, those are some of my favorite, I guess, during that period,
those are some of my favorite too. I love Hershel so much. He is one of my favorite characters. Mm-hmm. There's just something about him as an actor, and just their relationship and how he was a father figure and how he influenced Rick so much. Mm-hmm. In parenting Carl and in helping him navigate what he should do, what he sees, because he does see that Carl shoots that kid, I want to call him, I guess, when the kid's ready to put down his weapon. And so, Hershel sees that and tells Rick, okay, I think, you keep going out and hunting and doing all these other things, but I think you need to be here and be with your son. And teaches him how to farm. And that's when, of course, Rick becomes Farmer Rick for a while. But he needed it. Rick actually needed that downtime too, because he just did. Mm-hmm. He's always out there fighting also. And that's what we see so much of Rick, is that he goes out and he does all these things, and he's a leader and he's a fighter and he does all these things, but then sometimes he needs to be brought back too. Mm-hmm. And so I think when Hershel was still around, he was able to do that for him. And that's why I just love their friendship so much. And I think also that Hershel, I don't know, just was able to spread a lot of knowledge even about his religious background and what, the faith that he had and how he viewed the world. And so he just shared a lot of that with Rick, which I think in turn influenced him. And one of my favorite episodes is season 4, episode 5, Internment. Mm-hmm. And it's just something about the way Hershel deals with everybody in the prison with the virus, and helping Glenn as Glenn's getting worse, as Sasha's getting worse, and, Lizzie and just everybody. I just love that whole thing. And we see Rick and Carl trying to hold up the fences so that the walkers don't come in. And or Maggie actually is helping first, but then when Maggie has to go help her dad because they hear gunfire, then all of a sudden Carl has to step up. And we do see Rick have some pride in having his son next to him doing this. And when they have to pull out the guns and shoot at the walkers, because of course the walkers breach the fence and start coming in. I just love that moment with them too. I just think it's really a special moment. And of course, then we see Maggie with her dad. Mm-hmm. And before then, Rick and Hershel had some philosophical conversations during that episode too. And then episode 8, which is Too Far Gone, which is probably my favorite episode ever. It just beautifully captures Hershel's unwavering optimism and Rick's willingness to compromise, because when Rick is trying to talk to the governor, because the governor has Hershel and Michonne there, and Rick is doing everything he can to talk him down, like just don't hurt them. No matter what you do, we can live. No, we can put everything aside and we can all live together. And I really do feel like in the moment that Rick is just doing everything he can, and he'll just squash everything that's happened previously. And let's just do this because he's trying to save them. Now, what would happen really later on if he did? I don't know. But I think at that moment that yes, that he means everything he says. And I just love that speech that he gives. Yeah. And of course, then the governor does the unthinkable, and the prison is destroyed and everybody has to go their separate ways, and they're on the road and so much happens. Again, fast forward to the Claimers, which is again another one of my favorite moments. Of course, seeing Rick very protective of his family, because like you said, Carl is everything to him. And so it was just a horrible scene with that man. I did not blame Rick, even though it was very brutal. And I'm like, just kill him. But he's all, no, I'm not going to just kill him. I was like, oh my God, Rick. Oh my God. But it's one of my all-time favorite moments also. But we also, during that episode, we do see Rick flash back to Hershel. And we see conversations that we didn't see, right? That he had with Hershel about different things. So I really liked how they juxtaposed those, the brutality that Rick was facing and also what Hershel's teaching. So I really, that was another highlight to that whole episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Seeing both aspects of that. And then of course we get to Terminus, and you talked about Carol saving the day as she does from them being eaten. Which I remember that scene thinking, how are they ever going to get out of this?
Exactly. Cause there's no way they're getting out of this. Their hands are zip tied, feet are zip tied. This guy's just slicing necks. You're like,
how they're never going to get out of this. What is going to happen? There's a lot of tension in that episode. Yeah. And then of course we see Carol blow it up. And so, and they all end up getting out of there. But of course that moment, I wanted to bring up the moment that Rick realizes what Carol has done, even though he banished her from the group. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have banished her, but he made a decision. I don't know if it was right or wrong. I really don't know. He was trying to make the best decision he could with Tyrese. And it is a hard decision because Carol made a decision that maybe she shouldn't have either. So Rick had to deal with what was happening there. But I just love that, Carol is just amazing. And, but I love that he recognized what she contributed and that he apologizes to her and thanks her. And then when he realizes Judith is still alive, that it's just such a special moment. Yeah. So cool. All right. So let's get into season 6 through 8. Rick faces challenges integrating into Alexandria, showcasing his adaptive leadership style. We see Negan's ruthless reign and Carl's death, which profoundly impacts Rick, shaping his continuous evolution as a leader. And so what did you think of this time with Rick and company?
So, this is where it starts to get a little, we start getting so many new cast members. So it's very difficult. This, and it just grows from there. It's hard to keep up with all the different storylines and things, during some of the later even seasons. But I do love, one of my favorite when they, the whole introduction to Alexandria and stuff was very interesting. And, just seeing this community that's been protected by these walls and that sort of thing. But I love it when Rick finally just he's done with those Alexandrians after he fights with Pete. He's like, you guys, seriously. And he just freaks out. That's, of course, first time he says, we're the ones who live because we do the things and we're not afraid to do things. And then Michonne clogs him in the head. And it's just, it's like, she's like, just, you got to stop, And so it's very serious on Rick's part, but it's very comical as you're watching it because he just loses it. He's just like, you guys are idiots, you don't even know what's out there. And so I love that scene is just, yeah. And, Carl's death, I'm one of those people, I was not a big Carl fan. I know that's not a popular opinion, but I don't know. I don't know. But, to see Rick and Michonne and what they had to go through with that and to have him be the one, like, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to put myself down because I don't want my dad and Michonne to have to do this. You know what I mean? There was that was gut wrenching. And, Rick, that since the beginning, his whole thing has been to protect Carl.
Right.
And he couldn't, he shows him his bite. We're not taking half your abdomen away. We can't cut that out.
Right.
Rick is helpless in this. And it is, it's, a testament to Andrew Lincoln as an actor, and just, it's phenomenal. That episode was so amazing where we're seeing the different parts and the different things and just all the stuff that's going on in that episode. And yeah, it was pretty cool. But, and luckily he had Michonne to shoulder that grief, they could share their grief. And then they had Judith to continue. Not that she really knew her brother. I mean, she was too little to really understand it or anything, but she, they had her. But yeah, and Negan's reign, I think that whole all out war thing went on too long, but I know it had a purpose and everything, but it, just kind of went on a little bit long, and so much happened during that time period because it was very over multiple seasons and things. But, even in his death, Carl influenced his father with his letter, and which that's the only reason Negan's alive is because of Carl,
Exactly.
Rick took to heart what his son told him. And
he did.
Yeah. So there's a lot goes on in those, some of those later seasons there before, up to season 9. And Rick, it was just tough to be a leader of any of these people during that time because what do you do with a person like Negan, and then then Hilltop got introduced too, and he had to deal with those guys, you know what I mean? So like Gregory and stuff like that too, So there was just a lot that went on during that.
There's so many people. So I think that, and we didn't really even talk about, and it'll take too long to talk about, but Negan's reign and also him killing Glenn and Abraham and all of that. But the reason I do kind of want to bring up that is because Rick totally changed when that happened. He was like, okay, I have to pull back on, how I normally do things because we need to survive right now. Mm-hmm. This is all we need to do. Let's just get us to survive. And then we'll figure out the next phase of what we need to do. That was hard because Rick takes ownership of where everybody is at and how this group is going to survive. Because you do as a leader, right? You feel responsible for what happens to everybody. And he tries to do what's best for everybody. But at the same time, he is still focused on Carl and his family. So it's Carl and his family, but also what happens to the group as a whole also. We see Rick change throughout so much, and you have to evolve constantly. You can't just be at the same note all the time. I know that in season 7, episode 4, entitled The Service, I rewatched a lot of the episodes before our conversation because I just wanted to be familiar about the things that we were talking about. This one really showed Rick's vulnerability because he opens up to Michonne about Judith. Because even though we all knew, okay, Judith might not be his, what is he? Because afterwards, when they were at the farm, they made it seem like, no, this is Rick's child, but they were saying it like, oh, this is Rick's. Rick's going to be the parent.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shane. Rick's going to
Yeah.
be the parent. But we don't know. It's like, okay, what do you mean? Like, does that mean he's really the parent biologically or not? But, this is the first time Rick really says it out loud that he is not or doesn't think he is. Of course, back here in the little piece of my brain, I'm like, he could be. He could be.
There's a slim chance.
But his commitment is to Judith and that he views her as his daughter. And that's just the way it's going to be. And that's the way she's brought up because she's a Grimes. That's who she is. So, and I think she is too.
Yeah,
so, it's like fact to the rest of us. She is. And so, but I did want to bring up that part of Rick and his vulnerability during kind of the seasons. And then there are some negotiations with Jadis. And the only reason I wanted to bring up Jadis is because we will see her in The Ones Who Live. And so it was interesting to go back and see her because we do see her different in The World Beyond. And of course, I'm wondering how she's going to be, which we'll get into that in the next segment. But I did want to bring her up because we are going to talk about her a little bit. Yeah. But we did see Rick when he met up with her. I kind of feel like he felt there was hope because again, they were trying to figure out how they were going to combat Negan. And so they thought, oh, well, these are more people that can, help us to win this war against Negan. And of course, Rick has to show his ability by fighting Winslow. And so we see a lot of resilience in Rick. We see a lot of determination and building allyship with other people here. And you saw this determination that he had again, like it has resurfaced during this time. So, and then, we see a shift in dynamics as it goes on. And with Carl, I do like Carl. The only time I was really kind of irritated with Carl was when he was mad at his dad when they left the prison. They all scattered. He said all the stuff that he said to his dad. I was so mad at him. I wanted to reach through the television and smack him. But on his deathbed, everything that he says to Rick, apologizing for everything and that he understands why his dad did it, I was bleeding. As a parent, you want to know that you made good decisions and you would hope that your kids would, understand what you did was for them, whether it's right or wrong. You can only make the best decision that you can with what you have in front of you and the knowledge that you have. You don't know what the future holds and what they're going to think and what's going to happen. So the fact that Carl, said everything that he said to his dad. Oh my God, my heart was just breaking. And also to see everything that Rick had done for his son and the choices he made and just everything. It was heartbreaking. And even to go back now again, knowing that Carl doesn't live, because at that time, I don't think any of them knew, right? Because it was written afterwards, right?
Way later,
so, everything that they were doing was that Rick was thinking that his son was going to out-survive him. I love that Carl encourages Rick to see a different way, which I think is important and really the right way. Because if you hold on to grief and revenge, it's just going to kind of tear you up inside. So I think that I'm glad that Carl told his dad that and that he wrote the letters and gave him that push toward the light for now. And then in season 6, episode 16, The Wrath, we see when he has to make that choice, but we also see Rick thinking about his son when he was a little boy, just holding that value of his relationship with his son and his family. And then of course the battle against the saviors and Negan's defeat, and that Rick decides what he decides, even though Maggie is not happy about it, and neither is other people, which we'll discuss further. But I feel like this episode really highlights the themes of moving forward and looking toward a better future without this violent cycle. And I just think that Carl's letters were really showcased Rick's emotional growth throughout the season. All right. So as we wrap up this episode, we've only scratched the surface of Rick Grimes' incredible journey. So make sure you join us for our next session where we will continue to explore Rick's leadership evolution and discuss the aftermath of the sacrifice of season 9 and our anticipation of the ones who live. So stay tuned for part 2. Okay. But before we move on entirely, I would love to know if you're watching any TV shows or movies that you would like to recommend.
So I was sick recently, so I watched a lot of older things in that, but I did watch Harlan Coben's Fool Me Once on Netflix, and that was very good, which I've liked. I think I've liked just about all of his series they've done on Netflix. We also started watching Loudermilk. Have you seen that one?
I haven't.
It's kind of a dark comedy kind of thing. And we've watched, I can't remember how many episodes. I don't think we finished the season yet, but it's, I like it a lot. It's funny and that dark comedy kind of thing, and I know Ron Livingston he plays kind of the same character a lot. It's just one of those kind of, I don't know, just his normal characters. I mean, it's very good though. And then did you ever watch Wilderness? And I can't remember if I told you about that one. Okay. No. Watch it. It is so good. It's a thriller thing that you don't know what's going on and all this stuff. And it's so good.
Is it a movie?
It's a series.
A series?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And I watched it and I couldn't stop. I could not stop.
Oh my gosh. Is there only one season or is it a limited series or okay?
There's one season currently. So I guess I haven't heard if it's been renewed or anything, but very good. And then we did start the first season of The True Detective, and we're not through the first season yet, but it's really, really good, which I think you're watching the other seasons.
Yes. So have you never watched True Detective before? Oh, okay.
My mom, was like, you guys have to watch this. And I've heard so many people say, especially the hype for the newest season, everybody was so hyped about that. So then we're like, well, we have to take a look at this, And so anyway, we're not through the first season, but loving it. Okay, and then I watched Something's Gotta Give. So this is a 2003 movie with Diane Keaton, Jack Nicholson,
I love that movie.
Frances McDormand, and Keanu Reeves. And I'm like, I'm watching this movie that I swore I had watched. And I'm like, I have never seen this movie.
Wow.
It was just crazy because I watch everything with Keanu Reeves.
Yeah.
And I was like, I love that movie. It was so stinking cute. So anyway, if you haven't watched it, do it because you're missing out. And then while I was sick again, I'm just pushing play. Like, what else can I watch? I'm bored to death watching TV. But I went back and watched the Chronicle of Narnia movies and discovered I hadn't watched the third movie. I thought I'd watch that, but that one was really actually very good. A lot of times by the third, it's not so good or whatever. So anyways, if you haven't watched those, and I did watch all of the Jumanjis as well. Which they're always great. So anyway, a lot of old ones that I watched, but just to remind you, there's some really good old movies out there too.
There are some. And then there are times that people haven't watched them, just like you hadn't watched True Detective. So now you went back and watched it. So that's great.
Yeah.
Well, just like me, I hadn't watched Fargo. And so when season 5 came out, it's an anthology. So you can go watch each season separately. So I watched season 5 as it was coming out, loved it so much. Juno Temple's in it, John Hamm and Jennifer Jason Leigh. They are all so good. But I went back and watched season 2, and that is with Kirsten Dunst and Jesse Plemons and Patrick Wilson. Oh, I really liked it too, a lot. And I think that's when they got together as a couple. So I found it, I knew that they had played in something together, and that's when they began their relationship. But now they've done a lot of acting together on different shows or movies. And so I haven't seen the other Fargo, but I probably will because I really liked those 2 seasons. So I would highly recommend watching that. But see, I went back and watched season 2, and that's been out for a while. And then I too watched Fool Me Once on Netflix, and I really like it. So I would recommend that also. So back in, I think it was actually New Year's Day, I went and watched The Iron Claw in theaters. I loved it. Did you watch this, by the way?
Not yet, but I want to see that. That looks so good.
It's with Zac Efron, Jeremy Allen White. I truly enjoyed it. It's the type of movie I like to see. Yes, it has to do with wrestling. It's about this wrestling family, the Von Erichs, and real life wrestlers, and how their father was a wrestler, and then the whole family of brothers become wrestlers, and how there's supposedly this curse because if you know anything about them, many of that family have died. Mm-hmm. And so it's how the brothers who have this bond with each other because they wrestled together, but also just the sadness and darkness about this curse that happens to them. And is it their upbringing? Is it, the times? Is it the sport that they're in? It's all these factors that come together, and it's just really well done. I wish it had received some Emmy, some Oscars or even Golden Globes or anything. It would have been great. I think it made the cutoff and maybe didn't. I don't know, but it was so well done and I highly recommend it. It just really hit me the right way. The soundtrack, just the way it's filmed, everything. So I was really impressed with that movie and highly recommend it. I also saw Saltburn on Prime, and I saw this a while back. And when I first saw it, I'm like, what the heck am I watching? Yeah. This is like crazy. But then after, when you read more about it and you learn more about it, and then I realized it was a dark comedy, I'm like, this totally makes sense now. And just for people that don't know, it's about an Oxford student who becomes obsessed with this aristocratic classmate and is invited to spend the summer at their eccentric family estate. And it's kind of crazy. So yeah, I did enjoy it. So, and it is with Barry Cogan and Jacob Elordi, and they're just two up and coming great actors right now. So just know it's different. Okay. And you got to
I've read a couple of things but I haven't watched it yet because I've read a couple and I'm like, am I going to like this? There are some strange things.
I think if it's a dark comedy and you can't take it too seriously, because if you take it like a serious movie, you're like, what the heck is going on? But if you approach it in a different manner, then I think it lightens up a little bit and is not so heavy. But yeah, there are some scenes in there. So it may not be for everybody. Let me put it that way. All right. Well, thank you, Renee, for your recommendations. And friends out there, if you have any TV or recommendations for us, please give us a shout. And remember, Screens in Focus does have a Google voicemail that you can leave your recommendations on. And the phone number is 669-223-8542. That is in our show notes. So we would love to hear what you are watching. Okay, Renee, thank you so much for joining me on this Rick Grimes journey. Thank you.
Thank you for having me because I always love our conversations.
I do. I love them too. Thank you so much. And please stay tuned for part 2. Because we are here to break down the rest of it with you. All right, friends out there, thanks for joining in. We are grateful you joined us today, and we hope something that we said today resonated with you, gave you a chuckle, some happiness, some positivity, or inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at screensinfocus.com. And why not share this podcast with a friend? We'd love to welcome more members to our TV club. You can find our website link in the show notes. And remember to keep watching, keep exploring, and keep those screens in focus. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.